has a tuned engine and everything in it.
I don't know about tuning.
Just a standard.
Let's say standard. Because you wouldn't know if it's a tuned or not unless the customer gives you an order.
Yeah.
Or would you just go ahead and tune it off?
I would always go with electronic ignition, same as what you're doing on your engines. But if it was built by me, without like trying to blow my own trumpet, I'd probably try and sell it for, I don't know, $4,000-ish.
That's reasonable.
Yeah.
That's reasonable for what others are doing.
Yeah, it all depends because.
Well, that won't include the bodywork.
Yeah, well, that would be the whole scooter.
Obviously, would you do the bodywork as well?
It depends. Well, when you say I do it, if somebody bought me a scooter now and said, "Can you please restore this?"
Yeah.
I would strip it all down. So I've got that Vespa T5 there.
Yeah.
I'd strip it all down. I have a guy who is a bodywork guy and a painter guy.
Okay.
Who I'd take it to and say, "Look, can you repair this bit? Can you paint it in this colour? Matey wants it this." And I just, whatever his cost is, he's quite cheap. He's kind of £600 to £800 per scooter, which is pretty reasonable for a UK one. I put, £100 or £200 on top of that, pass that cost on to the customer. He'd do all the painting, I'd get it back, I'd bolt it all together. And in the meantime, I'd be building the engine, I'd do all the engine stuff myself. Mm-hmm. But I'd always recommend for any customers to have electronic ignition. And a more modern carb, etc.
Okay, so can you just have a look at this washer? I think this was just a normal washer. And
it should. It should just be a flat washer. Again, it should be spring washer, flat washer, and it's just been over tightened.
Yeah. So this should be a flat washer and spring washer.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And when you put the engine together, the casing halves together, those four are the first ones that you should do up because they're basically around the crankshaft.
Okay. So again. But this one even doesn't have a washer. Oh, it does have a washer? I can't see.
I would say no, it doesn't.
It doesn't even have a washer. Okay.
So it needs to have one.
There's pieces of aluminum coming down. And do you think they've been over tightened?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, if the flat washer has been distorted, but
unless they're flat washers are a bit too soft. Maybe.
Yeah, the washers might be a bit too soft, or they might have reused old washers that.
No, the washers are new.
Yeah. Okay. So in which case,
because I know what's old. The washers are new.
Okay.
So they've just been over tightened.
But it's not. If you over tighten it there, it's not the end of the world. It's not really going to cause that much damage. It's not going to warp anything.
Probably that around here you want it to be tight.
Yeah, you want it to be pretty tight. But again, it's not necessarily the tightness, it's having an even spread. So you don't want one loose one really tight one. They've all got to be fairly even.
Right.
And it's like, screwing the bottle, the top on a bottle. You don't have to screw, if you've got a Coke bottle or something, you don't have to screw it mega tight for it to make a seal.
Okay, no, but you don't have...
Yeah, they're all stuck in the casing, those studs, so you can't knock them out, obviously. I just want to check there's the long bolt that goes through here, which I think is out already. Yeah, that's that one. Okay, so now we come to the point where we can separate the cases. Now, have you seen one of these tools before?
No.
Okay, so this is a casing separator tool, and what we can do is, so if we take this out. Again, you could probably make these, or these are made in India or something anyway, so you might be able to buy them cheap. If you take that screw up first, but because this is a PX casing, we're kind of going to separate it in a different way than we would a spring casing. It's sort of the same, but you can do it from either this side or you can do it from that side. But because a PX crank isn't tight in the casings, we can push it out from either side, but it's better to do it from the
crank is not tight in the casing.
Yeah, so with an old style crank like this, those big bearings are an interference fit into the brass bushings in the casing, right? So both sides, they're tight in the casing.
Pressed in.
Yeah. Whereas with a PX one, this the crank just goes through that bearing. It's not tied
Right.
in
Okay.
there. That bearing is an interference fit into the casing, but the crank,
isn't.
is just slotted in there, which is why it's much easier to build a PX engine than a Sprint engine.
Right.
Okay, so let's just check the size on that one. We've got two different sizes. So we use that one. That just protects the crankshaft. What we're going to do, might want to move your
Sure.
toolbox so just we've got a bit more room. Oops. Okay, so this goes on here, and you want to line it up with the holes there, and you get these special things that screw into the casing. So you want to make sure they're nice and flat on there, so you don't cross thread anything.
Why don't we use the same bolts, the one which came out of the...
I don't know whether the heads will be a bit too not strong enough, if you know what I mean. For pressure.
Yeah,
We shouldn't have to apply too much pressure on these. And you know, this is the tool. These are what come with it. So this is the way I always do it. And it's pretty quick with these ones. Okay, so when you're separating the casings with any Vespa, what you don't want to do is use a screwdriver to try and separate the two halves, because you'll always make a mark on the gasket surface and it won't seal. So what you always want to do is use one of these tools, and you can tap this bit, and there's a special bit down here, little bit there that you can tap with a drift. But what we'll do there, so it should be a 19 mil.
19 mil?
I think it's 19, it might be a bit bigger. Let me just check that. Oh, in fact it might be a 21.
21?
No, 22. Sorry. There, I've got one.
Oh, you did?
So I'll let you do the honours on this bit if you want.
Thank you.
So we're turning it clockwise, and we're just doing it a little bit at a time, because what will happen is the casings will separate like this, and we want to be sort of separate it a little bit and then tap at the gearbox end. So that's it. You see, it's already made a bit of a gap.
Okay. And how do you do it at the bottom here? Tapping?
So yeah, what I'll do is, so you can undo it a little bit more.
Okay.
So
it's rotating the crank here.
yeah, that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not breaking anything.
No, just don't go too hard. That's all right. That's fine. So now we will see you've got a gap here now.
Yeah, we do.
So what you want to do, down, you see that point there? Okay. Now use a hammer and tap that point there. There we go. That's it. Lovely. Now do this a little bit more. And just make sure there's nothing sort of holding the casing together. It's fine. And now use your drift and tap that bit again. Okay, now we use this one again. Just some washers from the stator plate area, and then tap it down here again. That's it. I think you're almost there now, so if you do that just a few more times. There we go. Right, so you can stop with that now and just get ready to sort of catch anything. Okay. There you go, there's your kickstart gear, and the crank is now in there, but be careful, keep that so gravity is pushing the crank downwards. You don't want it falling out and on the floor or anything.
Okay, so which way would I put it down?
Yeah, that's it. Just put it down that way. Perfect. Alrighty, so you see you've now managed to separate the casings without damaging the crank. You've damaged no gasket surface or anything like that. It's a nice, neat way of doing it.
Probably might not even have to replace the gasket.
No, that's a cork gasket. Interesting. No.
Normally we all use cork gaskets because they're much thicker.
Yeah.
And if there are any gaps or anything, the cork gasket will actually sink into them.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
This is
That's your kickstart gear.
yeah, but I think it's a bit worn. Terribly worn.
Yeah, it looks a bit worn. It's a bit sharp. It's a
Sharp on the edges as well.
yeah. So you'd want to replace that ideally. Have you got a spare one?
I don't think I have them in stock, but I was rushing, so I didn't bring them.
Okay.
Next,
Right. So you can see round here. There's a lot of sealant.
Yeah.
Around here, and I don't know what that's covering up.
This is just put in for just as an added safety for the
texture. The only thing I'd say about doing that is when you want to change this oil seal at some point in its life, it might be a pain in the ass because it's going to be really stuck in there. And also, if this sealant is sitting too far proud of the casings, the crank web, this bit might rub on it. It's obviously not going to, it shouldn't damage the crank. You know, the crank is steel and this is whatever. So it will rub it down.
Type of a thing.
Yeah, but it's, you know, it might cause bits of it to break up and then get into your bearings. So the rotary pad doesn't look too bad. I don't know if that's had a slight repair or something up there, but it looks okay. That'll